All right, guys, we're back again. Consistently, like we told you, this is the third episode of Outside the Square Circle. We're going to go in. First, we're going to start off RIP Harold Lederman. Legend in the game. No matter how you view his opinions about how he scores, he is somebody whose voice and opinion will be sorely missed. He has been the sound of boxing for so many years when it comes to scoring rounds. And I just want to start out with saying RIP to him. And I want to break out saying, like, they were very, like, I don't know if this was a family, like, decision, but I didn't even know he was sickly. It seemed like they kept that pretty close to home all the way until they couldn't anymore. You know, I mean, I can only speak for me, myself, in particular. If I would, God forbid, I get sick, I put it out there because I want people praying for me. And I want everybody who know how to say a prayer for me. And because, you know, I just want people be informed about what's going on. If it was me, perhaps, but I do respect his opinion to keep it quiet and to fight it. And he's somebody that a lot of times, you know, even though I didn't always agree with his scoring, I would look forward to hearing his commentary because it was something that was just, it went hand in hand with boxing. I would love to hear him going, okay, this is how it goes. We're gonna score it 4 rounds to 2. The guy's not throwing any punches. You can't win a fight if you're not throwing punches. That, like, I love to hear him commentate, no matter how I view this scoring. And I gotta say, a really big RIP to him. What do you gotta say, Frank?
Yeah, no, I think you covered a lot, that was on my mind. I know when I had messaged you and let you know that he had passed away, and really both of our sentiments were, we didn't even know that he was sick. I mean, I think you respect a family or a person, whichever way, whether they want to make it public or not, just like you had said. But yeah, I mean, iconic voice in boxing. You always hear, the okay, Jim, I have it 3 rounds to 1, and in a lot of boxing circles. So he's obviously HBO boxing is no more, but he's going to be sorely missed. I know he had a really cool thing, I believe, with BBC or one of the British channels that do boxing, and he would be at the bar previewing a fight, and they were really quick. They were on YouTube. They're like 2 minutes long, and I used to enjoy hearing his take on upcoming fights. The one thing that I did like about Harold Lederman was, just like you said, I didn't always agree with this scoring, but he seemed to be, over the years, very consistent in the way that he did score fights, from fight to fight and from fighter to fighter. Like, he had his criteria and he was sticking to it. And that was something that I really did appreciate about him. And just like you said, and then I'll be done after this, I like that even if I didn't agree with him, he was still making a point. He wasn't just going for the hometown guy or the HBO guy. Like, you can legitimately see how a judge could be scoring it the exact same way that he was. Like, he wasn't just giving rounds to give rounds. And that was one thing that I did always appreciate about him. And yeah, just like you said, rest in peace. He was a legend. I believe he was he 79 at the time of his passing?
I believe that's
So I mean, that's a solid life. That's a nice long life he got to live. He got to experience. So obviously he'll be missed, but Godspeed to him. And I think going off that, obviously I wanted to get, well, we wanted to get the somber note out, before we got into anything, because it really can only go up from there. So let's just get right into the fights, man. Obviously, the biggest fight of the weekend was Jarrett Hurd versus why am I blanking on his first name? Jesus, I'm thrown off tonight.
Julian J. Rock Williams.
J. Rock Williams. So Jarrett Hurd versus J. Rock Williams in a fight that Jarrett Hurd was pretty heavily favored. I think at the time, the last time you can get your bids in, he was about a 4-1 favorite. I thought it was a pretty easy score to fight. I saw people on Twitter have it a lot closer than I did. Dennis, what were your thoughts on the fight and how'd you score it?
Well, first of all, I want to say congratulations to Julian. He's a Facebook friend of mine. He never answers. But no, I thought, first of all, I keep it real honest. Going into it, I thought I had Jarrett Hurd favorite. So like as a lot of people did. So that's why I never say it's a shock because anything can happen in boxing, but it was an eye opener to see how J Rock came in there and he fought. This is how you should fight when you want to take the title from the champion. You go in there, you push the agenda. You are the aggressor. You're landing the cleanest shots, and you dominate the fight. That's how you take a title from a champion. He took the title from the champion. He earned that win, that victory. I scored the fight, and I had it. I gave him 3 rounds. I could only find 3 rounds for her. I remember saying that. So I know I gave her like the second round, and I don't know, it was the middle round.
I think it was middle round and a late round, yeah.
Yeah, the middle round and late round I gave to him. And even that was like, because Hurd didn't really do anything that defined, okay, he definitely, absolutely won this round. For me, with Hurd, I think maybe he should move up first off, because he just looked so lethargic.
He did.
He seemed tired, as if something was holding him back. And I don't know if it's making a weight. I don't know if he needs a strength and conditioning coach, because I don't know if he has one or not, or if he just is a good enough athlete to make the weight because he works hard. But he dragged butt the whole fight. He didn't seem like that relentless Hurd that will throw a ton of punches, will wear you down and work you down round after round. He didn't seem that. He was the guy that was getting worked down. He was the guy that was getting hit more often. We didn't see him dominate fights like he did in the past. And I want to say maybe that was because of Julian counterpunching was on point. Maybe it was because when he did let his hands go, J-Rock was returning fire to him. Like he was hitting him with some good shots. So maybe that deterred him, but he still did look sluggish. So it makes me wonder if he should move up. And I know for J-Rock, there are only greater things ahead. And I definitely want to see. I want to see if Charlo gets his title back. I definitely want to see Charlo versus J-Rock. I want to see that fight now. That's something that intrigues me. I was asking today about Jaime Mugaya. I was asking about him, but he seems like another version of Hurd. He's
even a worse version than Hurd as well.
Get hit. Yeah, he's very hittable.
Yeah,
Still really green, really raw. And if he fought, I would help. I would like. For me as a fan, I want to see the Charlo fight for him. But if I'm in J-Rock's corner right now, I'm saying let's go get that WBO title, because I think he can beat Jaime. I think he can beat him and get that WBO title and have 3 titles now. I really do. I'm advising him, saying, "Hey, let's get this guy right now before he gets better, if he can change his defensive ways, before he get a chance to get a change. Let's go on there. Let's unify. Let's get that belt, and we can take care of any other business that we got to take care of later."
Yeah, I think promotionally it may be a challenge, but that would be the easiest fight for him to take after this. That said, I do think it's going to be an immediate rematch between J-Rock and Jarrett Hurd. I know there was a clause that Hurd said he would be exercising after losing the fight.
Do you think he's going to exercise, or do you think he's going to say, I'm going to move up?
You know what? I think he is, but and let me build to that point. So I think just starting from it, just like you, I only gave Hurd 2 rounds. I didn't like what I saw from him. But that being said, I didn't see anything different in this fight than in past fights. Well, not anything. I didn't see much different. He starts off super slow and he gets hit a lot. The biggest difference is that his pressure, even if he's not throwing a lot of punches early, it usually starts to wear down fighters. J-Rock had a beautiful game plan, because what he was doing was, in the early rounds, not only was he landing those clean, effective headshots, but he knew that he has a great chin. Granted, he put him down in the second round with a flush left hook, but he was working the body a ton. And I thought that was the difference between what J-Rock did and opponents had done in the past. You keep hitting that noggin, it's not going to do much to him. He's so much bigger than those guys at 154 that he's been eating them, for the better part of the last 3 years against guys who could really crack. And I also liked out of J-Rock that he didn't allow Hurd to keep coming forward. He pushed him back a ton, especially in the first half of the fight as well. And what we see a lot of times, and we saw it, I like going back to this example a lot between Andre Ward and Kovalev in the second fight, was that Ward backed him up. And that's what you have to do sometimes against guys who come forward nonstop. Another example of that was Shane Mosley versus Antonio Margarito. A lot of times, guys who only come forward have no idea how to fight on the back foot. So to see J-Rock really, cement that game plan, I thought was really, really cool to see. And so I guess answering your question as to, should there be an immediate rematch, as long as he's still making the weight fine, I would say yes. And the reason why I'm saying yes is that while J-Rock has good power, he doesn't have that type of power that's going to, I think, knock him out cold, let's say. I think he could ultimately get a stoppage, but I don't like what I see out of Hurd. I didn't like what I saw out of the last couple of fights. Even looking back to like the Lara fight in which he won, he takes a lot of really, really big shots. And I don't care how good your chin is, the more flush shots you continue to take fight after fight, it's going to crack. We saw it with Antonio Margarito. We saw it with I'm blanking. Who was the dude at 160 that this was years ago that would just continue to take flush shots? I'm blanking on him. This was like early 2000s. Anyway, we see this time and time again, and I think if he moves up to 160 and you're fighting guys that are a little bit more your size, I can see him getting beat and beat bad. I think Hurd has always had that style that you can see him losing to quite a few people, but his size was so much bigger than the other guy that kind of made up for the skill discrepancy. And I think we're getting to that time where that's no longer. And I'm seeing people on, the boxing threads and Reddit and whatnot saying, oh, he just has to go back to the drawing board and kind of work on a few things. I don't know if he can. He's never really had the greatest boxing skills. He made his living off of pressure. And if that's not working anymore, because if you don't have a good defense while you're pressuring, you're going to get hit. Mm-hmm. And we saw him get hurt quite a few times. I mean, he was wide open for the left hook. He was wide open for the right uppercut. He was getting jabbed all night. I mean, there's not very many punches that he was making J-Rock miss. And so if I'm him, I'm going right in for the J-Rock rematch. Hopefully, for his sake, he wins that fight. And then that sets you up with a cash-out fight against either one of the Charlos, or maybe you move up and fight Canelo, if that's possible between PBC and Dazin. But, yeah, I don't think his reign at the top is going to be much longer because, like I said, I never rated him too highly in terms of skill. I rated him as the number one at 154. But just with that style, you usually don't see people with that style stay at the top too long.
I agree with that. It was just to my point. I was thinking of another guy who took a lot of punishment, that became champion. Cheese. I can't even. Ruslan Provatnikov.
He's another one.
He was another guy that he would wear you down and just wear you down because he kept coming. He was just so tough, but he took a lot of punishment. We've seen how that ended. That doesn't end well for a fighter that, hey, this guy's very tough. He can take a lot of punishment, but he can dish it out. That's only going to last so long. See, when you fight elite competition that's able to evade some of your punishment and give you punishment back, then it becomes a one-sided thing.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's the thing. Like with those guys, I think it's like a quarterback who has a really, really strong arm. Like sometimes you don't want them to have too strong of an arm because they're liable to make bad decisions, even if there's a triple team on the receiver, because they have so much faith in their arm that they can get it through.
And the Jay Cutler syndrome. The guy can throw 70 yards on his knees and try to force everything.
Right. And so to that point, kind of with boxers with great chins, they kind of think, oh, I can take anything and take that for granted, where it's if you continue to get hit, it's never going to end well with you. But yeah, so I think that's what's going to be next. And ultimately, that's what I would like to see next is a rematch. I don't see very many avenues for them unless that falls through. Maybe then you get the winner. Obviously, J-Rock was the winner of this, and then he would fight the winner of Harrison and Jermell Charlo. But so I do want to ask you this, and you can say maybe what you want next as well. But so a lot of people were complaining about over-marination between Jermell Charlo and Jarrett Hurd. And this is my only complaint with that. I do think there are fights that have been over-marinated. We remember the Juanma Lopez versus Yuriorkis Gamboa fight that probably was over-marinated. Obviously, I think Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao was over-marinated. But this fight here, if you have two guys who were supposed to be the top two at 154, and this is no disrespect to Tony Harrison or J-Rock, because I think they're both excellent fighters, but those are the type of fighters you have to beat if you want to call yourself the best at 154. So if I'm being honest, if you're looking at these last few matchups of these guys, J-Rock has looked the best out of all of them in this winning performance. So if we're talking about, do we want fights in the moment that are good, or do we want two of the top guys at the division fighting? I think we have to have that conversation, because if we just wanted a good fight, we would get it between, Hurd and Jermell Charlo at any point. But my thing is, I want to see the top fighters in divisions fight. And in order for that to establish, you have to beat these guys. Exactly. So what are your thoughts on that? And then what do you want to see next for Hurd and J-Rock?
It's simple. You got to beat the guys that are put in front of you. That's why I don't knock any fight that loses, that takes a loss, because it's so hard to remain undefeated, especially when you have the mentality, I will fight the best. It's hard to keep your O intact if that's what you're doing. If you're just always looking to fight the next very best opponent out there, and Hurd has done that. He's always trying, so far he's consistently trying to fight the next best opponent out there. So that's why I don't knock him for this loss. If he takes this immediate rematch and gets his title back, all is forgiven. I say, hey, he learned from the loss. He learned how to come back and win. And I still want to see. I would still really would love to see. It would take nothing away from the Charlo versus Hurd fight.
I agree. And go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm cool.
And what we said last episode was something that J-Rock touched on after this win. He said, look, you guys write off people after one loss. And, whether people were saying that Jarrett Hurd overlooked him or yada, yada, at the end of the day, J-Rock is a problem and has always been a problem at 154. People forget, just because he got knocked out against Jermall Charlo, one, he was winning that fight, and that's not to make an excuse, but he's always been a top fighter. He was a top contender. He was a top prospect. Like, this dude can flat out fight. And the fact that, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to sit here and act like I knew this was going to happen. We didn't do a prediction on the fight, but my prediction was it would look a lot like this, but Jarrett Hurd would come on and either get a late stoppage or a close decision win, because these are what his fights look like. The first 6-7 rounds, he looks awful, and then all of a sudden he just flips the switch, his opponent gets tired, and he turns it on. But no, J-Rock had a great game plan, and he kept going. So I think it's time that not only fans, but promoters stop doing this thing where as soon as a fighter's lost, all of a sudden he's a gatekeeper. Like, don't get me wrong, there are legitimate gatekeepers in every division, but I don't think J-Rock is nearly one of them, and I didn't look at him like that in this fight. So that was a little bit weird to me. And to your point, if Hurd wins this fight and Jermell Charlo wins his fight, that didn't take away anything from that fight regardless. We just got to see, going back to what we said last episode, we got to see two guys really come back from adversity, see what they look like after their first loss, and now they're fighting each other back at the mountain peak. So I don't see an issue with it at all.
I would also like to add on that. I would like to see Eric Lubison. I really want them to throw that young man back in the fight. Let's see if he's ready.
Yeah.
I mean, J-Rock did it. J-Rock took the same exact loss he took, a knockout loss from Charlo, and came back. He did the same exact thing. Eric Lubison, young man, you need to show that you made up. Come back out there and fight some names. Yeah,
and to be fair to Lubin, he was very young. He was 21 years old when he took that Jermell Charlo fight. I think that was a little bit early for him. I was actually shocked that fight was made that early. But cool. I feel like we may get off on a tangent here, so let's move on with the Korobov versus Aleem fight. Firstly, what did you think? Because I don't think I've ever seen this before. A decision get overturned after it's already been announced. What did you take on that? Did you think the fix was in, or was it a legitimate mistake?
I felt like it was a weird coincidence. Not coincidence. It was a weird happening. I really felt like they were trying to fix it, but then they went back and repaired it. I was trying. That's how I feel about it. It was a really weird thing that happened. I'm not sure, but I can never be too sure because I'm not in the mix. It's just my opinion. I'm not sure what to think about it. What like honestly, I'm more curious to think what you think, because I can ramble on about it, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I think, for me, well, let's just start here. Judges get it right a lot more times than they get it wrong. Like a lot more times than they get it wrong. And I think people take these one or two bad decisions and really run with them with the whole boxing is fixed and oh my God, they robbed so and so. Especially, I mean, we've talked about this till we're blue in the face that close fights really can't be robberies with so many swing rounds. But you let people tell it, everyone's getting robbed every week, right? So I say that to say I am leaning much more towards that it was just a legitimate mistake. And I think people were very upset with it. One, because that is an annoyance. You have a fighter who thinks he won a fight. He's in the locker room celebrating. And they're like, hey, bud, it was actually a draw. I would be pissed by that. I would petition everything. I would put paperwork in with whatever governing body I needed to and see where that takes me. It's probably not going to take him far, but at least you do your due diligence. But I also think, with me saying that the judges get it right many more times than they get it wrong, I think they got it right here, because I didn't score the fight. I was just watching, purely from a fan perspective. But from what I saw, there were some really close early rounds. Korobov, I thought, dominated the mid rounds, and then the late rounds, he by round 7 or 8, he looked exhausted, and Aleem just really started to come on and listen to his corner when he said, he's getting tired, really let your hands go. And he caught Korobov and hurt him a couple of times. So what I saw, without scoring it, just with the eyeball test, it looked like a pretty even fight. That said, I think best case scenario was a draw for Aleem, because I do think Korobov banked some early rounds and then dominated some of the mid rounds. And if there would have been a winner, I would have liked it to have been Korobov on a close decision. But I saw it pretty even. I thought they both dominated in spurts and they both looked really good. And for them, I would like to just see them run it right back. I don't think there's an issue with having them fight again.
You just fight it. You fight again and let it all come out in the wash.
Yeah, I will say this. I wanted Korobov to win simply because, well, let me say this. I wanted him to win because I thought Hurd was going to win. And then that gave an option for her to step up and kind of be that gatekeeper fight. Because Korobov is a good boxer, but he's like 38 or 37 right now. So he's not going to be at the elite level for very long. And I thought that could be next year sometime, like an introduction fight for Hurd at 160. But obviously, both of them have a little bit of work to go before you start to think about stuff like that. Any other thoughts on that fight, Dennis?
Nah, we can move right over into. I didn't even the next fight that I know you want to talk about, which I didn't see. I only saw highlights of it, admittedly.
Yeah. Well, then you saw the whole fight then, I think, between Burchelt and Francisco Vargas.
Yeah, I only saw because I was on the road driving. He was like, "Oh, this one's on ESPN." I was like, "Oh, it is." I was already driving. I didn't get the chance to see the fight. So I seen the highlights of it though. Also,
yeah, I mean, well, like I said, I mean, you by seeing the highlights, you pretty much saw the whole fight. It looked a lot like the first fight. It was just that Francisco Vargas was even more overmatched this time. Burchelt looked great. That being said, Burchelt is one of those dudes who gets hit a lot as well. And especially being at those small divisions, that style has a little bit more of a longevity to it because you're not fighting big guys. But I think his career is going to end like Chocolatito is. I mean, he's a face-first guy. He's super entertaining. Throws punches and bunches, but gets caught a lot. And for a while it lasts, he's entertaining as hell. But I always have my reservations for guys like that. And the older I get, and especially, with all the science that's coming out on like CTE and brain trauma and whatnot, like me being a kid and like watching Gotti and Ward, I was like, oh man, like this is crazy. And like seeing big hits from like Ed Reed and John Lynch, you would get like hyped. And now I see it and like, after so many punches, I start to cringe a little bit, or like those big hits, you're just like, ooh, like that might have took a few years off their life. You know what I mean?
Like when you get hit like that, like Bernard Hopkins said it. Whatever, how many fights you had, that took a few out the bank. If you
for sure.
If you had 20 fights, you have 17 now.
Yeah. No, and I think he summarized that beautifully. But like I said, you didn't miss too much with that action-packed, entertaining fight. Burchelt was a solid favorite going into the fight, so there weren't any surprises there. That being said, I know people, in terms of who who should they fight next and yada, yada. I'm not going to lie to everyone, and we've said this in the past, but with listenership kind of coming back on board, it's very hard for me to track anything under 130 gets to be tough for me because a lot of those fights happen in Japan and in Britain and whatnot. So I don't always see those live, and I even sometimes see only highlights. And with that being said, if I'm going to be honest with you, sometimes 118 to 126 I feel like is one division because I don't know who's in what some of the time. So I don't know who they should fight next, but I know I'm going to tune into Burchell because he's very entertaining.
Yeah. I try to keep up with 126 a little bit. Because the guys like Garrett Russell Jr., like guys down there that I know that they're really talented that can fight. I try, but like I said, it's difficult. I'm always wanting those guys to move up so it's like move up and fight, get in there with the big guys like Tank and the rest of them. Get in there with Lomo and the rest of those guys. I'm always trying to force those guys up.
No, for sure. I'm the same way, and admittedly, it may even be a little bit unfair because I feel like the way we're looking at it is like, oh, come on, 122 to 126, that's not big
of a rush. It's all the same thing. I always say this like, look, it's a few pounds.
Right.
126 to 130. Come on, don't be a pussy.
Right.
4 pounds.
And then it's like the funny thing is, and guys, this is our extreme casual take on things because we don't usually have this because like. Then we'll say someone going from like 147 to 154. We're like, man, like let the boys fight at 147. They can't just keep jumping up away. So it's like funny to see. Yeah. It's funny to see like the difference between, the different weight classes. But yeah, it was an entertaining fight. And I think one last topic that we can touch on before we get out of here. Obviously, a pretty big fight next week between Deontay Wilder and Dominic Breazeale. For me, a couple of interesting things that I'm looking for, but before I touch into those, what's your outlook on that fight? What are you thinking going into it?
Bomb squad to the day. I've been waiting to say those. I swear I had it ready just to say it. Deontay Wilder, because Dominic Breazeale is really resilient. He showed me that with the Anthony Joshua fight. He can take a lick. He can take punishment. So what's going to happen is, this is how I view it. Breazeale is going to start off fast. He's going to be winning. It's almost like, you remember Gerald Washington when he was boxing beautifully. And all he had to do was just not do what happened and go to sleep. That's all he had to do. I can see Dominic Breazeale winning the fight at that point.
Right.
And then he slows down, he ties down, he gets caught with a few shots, he takes them well, he comes back, and then at some point in time, Wilder's going to hit him with something big, and that's going to be the end of the night. Because Dominic Breazeale is hittable. He's very hittable. He takes those shots well. He takes them well because he has a good chin. But because if they wouldn't have stopped that AJ fight, he probably would have tried to keep going all the way to 12. That guy has heart, man. He's gonna go on the shield. He's one of those fighters I like. That's why I'm always liking to see Dominic Breazeale, whether no matter who he's facing, because I know he's either gonna give a big shot or he's gonna take a big shot, and he's not gonna be one of those guys that's gonna quit. But he's gonna be winning the fight up until the point where Deontay Wilder slowly wears him down and takes his lights out. That's just the short end of it.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the safe bet. The one thing, and I pretty much feel the same way. I don't know if he'll be ahead, but I think he's getting. I think he could be ahead. It could be just about even, but I think the mid rounds is when the fight will be stopped. But I'm interested to see how much respect that Wilder gives him early on, because just like you said, Breazeale is a tough dude. He can crack. He has a good chin. But his boxing ability isn't the greatest. Granted,
it's not like, you know what I mean. But this guy's just an Olympic guy, so
right.
he can't like he's seen a lot of styles. That's why he's able to box well. He's not Tyson Fury skilled, but he is skilled enough because he's seen a lot of different styles to stick around a little bit.
Well, and I wouldn't even say that it would be a hot take to say that he's better fundamentally than Deontay Wilder. That's not a hot take, is it?
No.
Yeah, so I mean, I think he's the better overall boxer, but as we know in the heavyweight division, that really doesn't matter very much in most cases. Um, but I am curious to see, what Wilder does early. And if I'm being honest, I'm giving Dominic Brazil the same advice that you gave Danny Jacobs going into the Canelo fight. Get out there, get shot out of a cannon, try to knock this dude out, because realistically, the longer this fight, goes on, the more of a chance you're giving him to put your lights out.
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah, so I think I would like to see if he does that. That being said, that's obviously dangerous as well, because we've seen guys get caught coming in against Deontay Wilder, like Duhaupas, in a fight that Duhaupas was winning and just got his lights turned out. So it's a dangerous. I think it's high risk, high reward, because if we've seen Wilder get hurt before. Granted, he's never been down that I've seen. Maybe early in his career, I think he got knocked down once. But since we've seen him and since he's been at the elite level, he's been hurt a couple times. Luis Ortiz got him. I thought Fury buzzed him a couple of times, but outside of that, he's recovered very well. But that being said, if I'm Brazil, you have to know. I think you have to be realistic with yourself and say, look, I have a good chin. I've taken good shots before, but this dude is something different. So the longer this fight goes on, it's going to be bad news for me, because I don't think I have the skills to outbox him for all 12. So let's throw caution to the wind early, see if we can't hurt him and see if we can't get him out of there.
We've seen Wilder hurt to guys like Eric Molina.
Yeah.
So it is not outside of the possibility that you can hurt him.
And I would say, if I'm being honest, and I don't think this is a hot take either, I think in terms of one-shot power, I think Dominic Brazil hits harder than Luis Ortiz and Eric Molina. I don't think that's a very hot take.
Yeah.
I mean, you're seeing some of the punches that he's landed. Who was our boy that he fought? That we interviewed him before the fight. Why am I blanking on his name? I am being awful with names today. Brazil.
What? Say again?
Who did Dominic Brazil fight? And we interviewed the opponent going into the fight. He made him bite his tongue, and he damn near bit his tongue off. Amir Mansour. And you're talking about some of the. I mean, and Mansour, his whole career, he's been known as just a very durable dude. I mean, he can take a lick, but some of those shots that Brazil landed on him, Jesus Christ! I mean, those, you know what I mean? To see Mansour's whole demeanor change after those, that says something to me, because that's not someone who just takes things in quit. I'm not saying he quit in that fight, but I'm just saying in terms of his body language, he didn't look too good. So yeah, I mean, like you said, I think it's a pretty easy fight to call. I'm interested to see what the game plans are moving forward, and I'm interested to see if Brazil lands something that if he can hurt Wilder, because I think that adds intrigue into the fight as well.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think I said all that we can say. Those. Oh no, actually, before we get out of here too, let's talk really quick. The World Boxing Super Series at 140. I forgot to put that on the notes, so I don't mean to catch you off guard. But Josh Taylor's fighting Ivan Baranchyk, I believe is how you pronounce his name. Josh Taylor's a pretty solid favorite. Do you have any thoughts going into that fight? I think it's going to be a fairly easy win for Josh Taylor. I think he's just.
I was about to say I favor Josh Taylor to take that, and I'm just excited to see. I don't know if it's contagious going around. Like I can't think of his name.
Regis Prograis.
Regis Prograis. I'm just excited to see it all come down to Regis Prograis fighting everybody, because he's gonna win that tournament. This is the Super 6 tournament at 168. Was like you had, you know what I mean. You had those guys. Now even though Ward won, you had no idea coming out that Ward was gonna win, because everybody, you had like guys like Froch. Those guys were in there were killers. So
Kessler, Abraham, that was
exactly. This isn't the same thing. This is
right.
Regis Prograis tournament.
I agree wholeheartedly, but it will be. I will say this: I think if there is a guy to beat him in that tournament, it would be Josh Taylor.
Yeah.
I don't see anyone else standing too big of a chance, and I think he's proved that so far. But yeah, I think I've watched a few Josh Taylor fights. I haven't watched any Baranchyk fights live. I caught up on a little bit of him on YouTube. He seems like a very basic, straight up and down type of fighter, and I feel like Josh Taylor should make pretty easy work of him. But cool. I mean, I think we touched on everything. Again, rest in peace to Harold Lederman. Dennis, do you wanna ride us into the sunset here?
All right, everybody. I need y'all to do them 3 favorite things for me. Like, share, subscribe, show us love. We show y'all love. We talk about any topics y'all want to talk about. Put it in the comments. We'll talk about it. Well, listen, I don't listen. We're not the type of people that censor or block anybody. We want y'all to say how y'all feel. We don't do all that blocking. We don't do all that shine y'all. Hey, listen, say how you feel. We're going to say how we feel. It's been another episode of Outside the Square Circle. Thank you.